Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition. In the name of transparency, the DA's office releases video of 2 officer-involved shootings and 3 in-custody deaths. What they're saying about these deadly cases. Plus, California continues to struggle with developing enough affordable housing. Could state land be part of the solution? And the sun is shining, the weather is warm, and the sand sculpture competition is here. What's new this year? KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Friday, August 30th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. We begin tonight with the release of surveillance video by the San Diego District Attorney. They show 2 fatal officer-involved shootings and 3 in-custody deaths. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has reviewed the evidence. This is what he found.
The district attorney cleared deputies in this January shooting at a fast food restaurant in Lemon Grove.
You in the hoodie, put your hands up.
A review of the incident found that deputies were acting in self-defense. The DA says this video shows 28-year-old Adolfo Angel Gonzalez pulling out a gun and threatening customers. The DA says when deputies got to the restaurant, Gonzalez ignored commands and points his gun at the deputies. This is a second view of the shooting.
Put your hands up.
3 deputies shot and killed Gonzalez, who the DA says suffered from mental illness. The DA also cleared officers in this shooting outside the Del Mar racetrack last September. Video shows 22-year-old Daniel Elizarrares pointing a gun in the air. The DA says he fired 2 rounds before he was shot by a deputy. The DA says the deputy acted in self-defense. The man survived and later pleaded guilty to discharging a firearm.
Hey, just stay down, man.
This video shows officers responding to a call of a man who appeared to be on drugs in February.
Just relax, dude. Relax.
The DA says 44-year-old Lorraine Horn was handcuffed by police and while on the way to the hospital went into cardiac arrest. He later died at the hospital.
We're trying to still figure it out. We're still trying to figure out what's going on.
The medical examiner determined the cause of death was meth and PCP intoxication. The DA says the officers acted reasonably and have no criminal liability. This video shows deputies trying to arrest a 29-year-old man for trespassing at a gas station in Fallbrook last August.
Relax.
The DA says there was an altercation and deputies tasered Marco Antonio Napales Rosales before handcuffing him.
Stop fighting us.
The DA says on the way to the hospital, Napales Rosales became unresponsive. It was found he suffered a brain injury and died a day later.
Straps on the left.
The medical examiner found the cause of death was due to meth intoxication and physical exertion while restrained. The DA cleared the deputies involved.
Hey, what are you doing, bud?
This video shows a San Diego police officer arresting 39-year-old Vito Vitale last October.
Why are you naked, man?
The DA's office says people called police reporting a nude man frantically running around Little Italy.
Why is he standing like that? Relax. Go.
The DA says Vitale resisted the officer's attempt to restrain him.
Watch your knee there with the blood.
Vitale was injured in the scuffle and paramedics were called. The DA says his pulse was weak and CPR was performed, but the man later died at the hospital.
Is he out? Just check him.
The medical examiner said the cause of death was toxic effects of cocaine and the stress of being restrained. The DA says the officers used a reasonable amount of force and took appropriate steps to address Vitale's medical condition.
Still have a pulse?
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Hurricane Durian could be a Category 4 when it makes landfall. Experts say it's still heading towards Florida. As Nadia Romero shows us, some 10 million people are getting ready for impact.
Looks pretty bad, and it's unpredictable.
The entire state of Florida is under a state of emergency as residents prepare for Hurricane Durian.
I've considered getting out of town, but flights are pretty much sold out, and the ones that are available are extremely expensive.
Forecasters warn people should prepare before the arrival of tropical storm force winds, which are expected to hit the coast of Florida on Sunday night.
Too dangerous to be outside. You have to have things wrapped up. You don't want to be carrying plywood around in those type of winds.
The National Guard has been deployed as they get in place to help.
We expect about 2,000 soldiers and airmen from the Florida National Guard mobilized by the end of day today.
One major concern, long lines at gas stations as people fuel up before the storm hits.
I think Miami, 48% of the gas stations were out as of this morning.
But the governor says the state is resupplying gasoline as authorities urge residents to be ready to move out of the storm's way.
Make the preparations that you need. You do have some time, but that time is running out.
In West Palm Beach, Florida, I'm Nadia Romero reporting.
A government oversight group wants the courts to stop workers from burying nuclear waste along the California coastline near San Onofre. Public watchdogs claims transferring the waste is dangerous and that the canisters have thin walls. They say the first 4 canisters buried were defective and that a lawsuit is needed for an effective plan to remove the waste.
What we're looking for is a common sense approach to this problem and to stop the process of decommissioning that's in play right now as far as the spent nuclear fuel is concerned, and having everybody just step back and do a risk assessment and come up with a plan that really works rather than rush with a plan that is riddled with mistakes and a process that is riddled with mistakes and negligence, and just take a fresh look at this and hopefully come up with a solution.
The lawsuit goes on to state that the decommissioned plant, as well as the canisters, have not undergone a proper risk assessment. Opponents also cite an earthquake fault line near millions of people as another major concern. Still, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission says the transfers are safe. There's possibly more money going to the border wall project. Defense sources tell CNN that the Trump administration plans to take money from military construction to build the border wall. In order to repurpose the funds, the defense secretary has to certify that the new project supports U.S. military operations. The White House has not commented. 2 pieces of land in downtown San Diego are slated for affordable housing development. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the property owner might surprise you.
It's hard to find a better location than this block on State Street, but these buildings have been crumbling and vacant since the 1970s, all while the state's affordable housing crisis has gotten worse. So who owns the land? The state government does. So basically you, me, and everyone else in California. Governor Gavin Newsom has ordered state agencies to make these and other surplus properties across California available to affordable housing developers. People like Sue Reynolds, CEO of the nonprofit home builder Community Housing Works. She says the decision to turn these parcels into housing is a great idea.
They're big enough to do something with, which is very exciting. And there's over 100 of them, which is also very excited, from San Diego to Sacramento to the rural parts of the state. So we think this has real potential to make another dent in our housing problems.
Reynolds adds public land is a key ingredient to tackling the housing crisis.
A public land seller who wants it to be housing can be patient with you as you work through all the difficulties that are involved with redeveloping a site like this.
7 of the state's surplus properties are in San Diego County, including the State Building on Front Street. The state says it will start asking developers for proposals in September. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Labor Day weekend remains one of the busiest times to travel. In tonight's Summer Consumer Watch, Karen Kaifa looks at the most popular destinations and the 2 days you'll want to avoid to beat the crowds.
It is considered the unofficial end of summer, and whether you're flying to your Labor Day destination or driving there, prepare for large crowds.
This year, over 1/3 of Americans will be traveling for that last long weekend in summer.
According to TripAdvisor, 61% of those traveling will be hitting the road, while 27% will be flying. Among the top trips this year, a beach getaway, a trip to the city, an escape to the lake, a mountain getaway, or a visit to a national park.
Most folks are looking to spend time outdoors, soak up the nice weather before we're back into the back-to-school routine.
Quick trips to the city were also popular. The survey found New York City, Washington, D.C., Boston, Los Angeles, and Orlando were the top destinations. No matter how you're getting there, keep these 2 key dates in mind. TripAdvisor says Thursday, August 29th, and Tuesday, September 3rd will be the busiest days. But if you can't avoid them, pack your patience.
Try to leave a little bit earlier than you normally would, or even later in the day, to help avoid some of those busy trafficked roadways and long lines at the airport.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Karen Kaifa.
This long holiday weekend will bring cloudy mornings and increased humidity with lots of sunshine. Meteorologist Erin Calandra has tonight's forecast.
Thanks for joining us. We are seeing a beautiful day here in San Diego County. Not much going on across California, into Nevada, or into Arizona. Things are looking nice and quiet. We'll have lots of sunshine today, and our temperatures are increasing, especially in those interior parts of the county because of a big ridge that's developing in the southwest. For tonight, partly cloudy and humid. Our temperature will be 68 degrees for the low, and Oceanside will reach 64, Ramona 58, and Borrego Springs sitting in those low 80s for the lows tonight. Mount Laguna at 61 degrees. Tomorrow, expect to see sunshine. Borrego Springs up to 113, Mount Laguna in the mountains up to 86, and it's hot in Ramona and El Cajon. Temperatures there around 95 to 97 degrees. Now in San Diego, we're only 2 or 3 degrees above average, not that big of a deal, and that's because of the influence of the Pacific Ocean, of course. But once you get into those interior areas, we could see some record challenging temperatures throughout this week. Here's the ridge. We have a lot of warm air coming up from the south. We are seeing the return of some monsoon moisture for the Four Corners. That's good news for them. The deserts could use the rain. Taking a look at the extended forecasts here along the coast, we'll see temperatures in the low 80s each day, and we'll see perhaps a couple of clouds around, looking pleasant. Inland, it gets hot, 92 degrees. The warmest day of the week will be on Monday, Labor Day. If you have outdoor plans, well, grab that sunblock and make sure you're drinking water. 93 for that high temperature. In the deserts, we could see a strong storm on Monday. 102 for the temperature, so that will be a cooler day. By Tuesday, it's going to be dry again and sunny. And in the mountains, comfortable. We're in those 80s until Monday. We drop down to the upper 70s. Could see a storm in spots, and that will be the case into Tuesday. Other than that, we'll have sunshine with comfortable conditions. For KPBS, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
Today is National Beach Day, but if going into the ocean isn't your thing, maybe the sand is. Or as KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us, you can leave it to the experts at the U.S. Sand Sculpting Competition.
In the Broadway Pier building, sand sculptors are creating three-dimensional pieces of art. But before these intricate works can emerge, there's some hard work to be done. These boxes must be constructed and then filled with lots of sand. Master sand sculptor James Shin says creating these sculptures involves one part brute force and one part art. This is the brute force part.
They take sand and water and they start putting it in these boxes called forms. And as they pound it and compress all the sand together, it gets very, very tight so you can carve into it.
The formal name of this event is the U.S. Sand Sculpting Challenge and Dimensional Art Expo. It's the 8th year for the event, which is part competition, part exhibit. On this side, teams of 4 sculptors compete. On the other side, solo sculptors ply their trade. This year's theme is wonder. There's Wonder Woman, Stevie Wonder, and others that aren't so obvious. All of it remarkable.
One of the things I've always liked about sculpture, it's what you pull away that reveals the beauty of what's there, what's hidden in this big chunk of sand.
The sand here is not of the beach variety. This stuff comes from a quarry in San Diego County, and that makes all the difference. It's why Shin says he prefers working with sand over other media like metal or marble.
Sand, you can be a little bit forgiving. There's a certain amount that you can affix, but then there's a certain amount that you can't.
The event opens to the public on Saturday. It goes through Monday evening. Then the artwork will succumb to a bulldozer. The quarry will take its sand back, leaving only memories of these works of wonder. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Fallbrook is the focus for the latest in our KPBS series, Where I Come From. So far this season, we visited El Cajon and the South Bay. Tonight, we go north to examine the culture in Fallbrook, specifically its history with the KKK.
First thing that comes to mind is avocados and the Ku Klux Klan. The head of the Ku Klux Klan in the state of California lived here for a few decades and was allowed to grow his organization in this community.
I think it impacted the people from the outside coming in, if that makes sense. You know, with the Camp Pendleton back and here and them driving through town, that they were afraid to come into town after dark.
I'd hear that a lot more when I was a kid growing up, and you know, they would assume that everybody in Fallbrook is, you know, it's just full of racists.
We saw it. We saw folks in our community getting brutalized, and we responded to that. What is not very well known about Fallbrook is that there has been a sort of a civil rights movement, a Chicano power movement, a Chicano movement, you could say, to respond to that those extreme politics.
When we first moved here, there was the Ku Klux Klan thing with the Tom Metzger thing, and there was very few black people, and now there's a large mix of everybody, you know, so it's changed a lot over the years.
Those of us who are don't buy into that Metzger theory worked hard to make it culturally diverse.
I think it's getting to be pretty much a mixture. It's almost like a melting pot, like LA once was and still is.
We do live in a community of two extremes. And I believe it's important for us as people in Fallbrook to come to terms with this. Again, this is a perception outside of Fallbrook. For many of those that do live in Fallbrook, especially folks of color, this is the reality.
I remember as a child, you know, thinking we were associated with the KKK. People thought of Fallbrook, and that's the first thing that came to mind. And now I think it's just avocados.
Maybe we remembered in history. May that be a small blip, and the greater things we can be remembered for.
We'd like to hear what you think about our series, Where I Come From. Go to KPBS's Facebook page and join the conversation. The third annual Latinx New Play Festival begins tonight. The three-day event showcases stage readings of new plays. KPBS arts reporter Beth Acamando sat in on the first table reads earlier this week.
We can start at the top on page 1.
In theater, everything begins with the written word, and what a playwright sets down on the page can be treated like scripture. But a new play is a living and breathing thing that's still growing and changing. Earlier this week, freshly Xeroxed copies of Jordan Ramirez Puckett's play were handed out around a table at San Diego Rep's rehearsal space in Chula Vista.
I bolded the stage directions that I would like read.
Santiago Iacinti is directing Ramirez Puckett's play.
We are here today for the first table read of the new play, To Saints and Stars, which is following two friends, Sophia and Zoe, who grew up together, and they're navigating whether religion and science are in opposition to each other.
The world is changing, and I'm shocked that you would want to bring a child into this mess.
I have faith.
That what? The planet's gonna suddenly get cooler? That water will
rain from the sky? Maybe.
This table read is almost as stripped down a version of the play as audiences will see on Saturday.
I really believe that the most important character in any play is the audience, and you don't get a sense of that when you're alone in your room reading the play on a computer screen, or even if you get a bunch of friends together and just read it in your living room. You need a live, breathing audience to go, oh, okay, that's a laugh line. I didn't realize it was a laugh line. Great. It's really informative to know what's working and what's not, and you only get a sense of that by being in the room. And so it's a way for theaters to help a playwright test material out before you're the big stakes of getting it a full production and you have reviewers coming to opening night.
Sophia and Zoe run off in opposite directions, aging as they do. Zoe joins her husband John, and Sophia gets back into the spacecraft with Ken.
Basically, the actors will have scripts in hand the whole time, and what's great about that for me is I plan on making changes to the play throughout the week as we're working on the script, developing it with the actors, getting the actors' feedback.
What would you say is the tone of Sophia and Zoe's debate?
And so I might be making changes to the script the day that an audience sees it.
That's the kind of excitement you'll find in the San Diego Reps Latinx New Play Festival, where 4 new plays will receive staged readings. This past Monday, Iacinti heard the play for the very first time.
It's exciting. I'm very passionate about new work, so we are focusing on the text and developing it. A lot of what we're doing this week is giving the playwright, who is with us the entire week, the opportunity to hear it out loud. And so this is an opportunity for the playwright to really see it on its feet and to help her in the development process.
A director doesn't always have the luxury of working with the writer of the work being produced.
Like I said, having the playwright and the dramaturg in the room is a great resource.
Has everyone worked with a dramaturg before?
Yes.
You haven't?
I had the pleasure, no.
I have never worked on a play as a dramaturg with the playwright in the room, so I'm so excited.
So the dramaturg's job is to work with what the playwright has written. The dramaturg will do research and background on the history of the play, depending on what the subject matter is.
Because it is quite a conversion, and we can get into this like in the coming days that we have, right? Between like the worlds, like the 4 big religions.
They'll make suggestions about what they think in the text is working and what they think needs to be addressed.
It's also an opportunity to dig into the background of the play with the person who created it.
I consider myself a person of faith, but I also deeply value scientific contributions, and I think a lot of times I see them put at odds with one another. Either you believe in God or you believe in science. So I was really interested in exploring that through these 2 women.
Why? I get to make history. I get to be one of 4 people to try and make life on Mars work, to try and make it a new Earth.
What about children?
What about them?
It won't be Earth without children. Are they expecting you to single-handedly populate the planet?
Is that supposed to be funny?
I'm trying to figure out exactly what you've signed yourself up for.
We have no idea what would happen to a fetus on Mars.
San Diego Rep and Amigos del Rep are providing a showcase for Latinx playwrights to explore issues of concern to them, whether it's big questions of science and faith or something more intimate and universal.
I always hope that my plays make someone want to pick up the phone and call a loved one and remember the people that they care about and to reach out to them. I think we could all use a little bit more of that.
You don't need sets and costumes to convey that, just a playwright's carefully chosen words and an actor to deliver them. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Warner Brothers is looking for developers. The entertainment company has announced plans for WB Games San Diego. What we know so far is that the studio will be located in Carlsbad and dedicated to producing mobile games. Let's bring in Miro Kopik with Bottom Line Marketing and SDSU to talk about this and the rest of Friday's business news. Welcome.
Thanks, Ebony.
So we know of Warner Brothers as a big entertainment company for movies like Harry Potter and Batman, but what does this expansion tell us?
Well, it shows that San Diego is kind of becoming a hub for mobile games. There are a couple of other mobile companies here in San Diego, like Jam City or Redemption Games. This is going to be their 10th location for Warner Brothers Interactive Games. They're going to focus on free-to-play mobile games. Like you said, it has franchises like DC Comics and Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. Why they want San Diego is because there's a lot of development talent. It's less expensive than LA. There's a lot of talent in LA that used to be in television and movies that knows long-form storytelling, which is the basis of video games. And so with the popularity of esports and all these online games, San Diego becomes a mecca. And what's great about San Diego is that now we're starting to get little hubs, not just being successful with biotech and life sciences, but we have our little hubs of golf, action sports, now games. So pretty exciting time for San Diego.
So next up, a judge out of Oklahoma has ruled that Johnson & Johnson needs to pay more than $500 million for its role in the opioid crisis. How significant is this judgment?
Well, at the face of it, it sounds like it's a huge judgment. The fact of the matter is, it is way below what the state attorney general was asking for in terms of a penalty of $17 billion. So it's just 5% of what the state attorney general was asking. Oklahoma is the focal point of the opioid crisis. It's the worst state in the union. The argument was, am I selling aggressively in terms of efficacy of the product, or am I not telling doctors the addictive properties? And this is a major precedent-setting move, because the other thing that Oklahoma does is that most of the $150 billion in lawsuits that are out there right now, the kind of the arguments that the other lawsuits are making are very similar to what Oklahoma is what was made in Oklahoma. If those judgments are going to be less than what the state attorney generals are asking for, that's going to be a big problem. Yes, weeks and years.
So lastly, we have a fun one. It's a debate going on online. If you've been on social media, you've noticed possibly the debate of whether or not Popeyes or Chick-fil-A has a tastier chicken sandwich. So there's been a lot of buzz and conversation, but has this translated into sales?
Well, for Popeyes, they've launched their first chicken sandwich ever on the menu on August the 9th. It's very similar to the Chick-fil-A sandwich. It's a buttery bun with pickles. And for Popeyes, they started a Twitter feud with Chick-fil-A, which prompted more attention. They sold out of their entire inventory. They're expected to sell out this week. They had bought inventory through the end of September, so they're going to continue the chicken sandwich. And this is a major issue because the chicken wars, we talked about this before with McDonald's franchisees really concerned about Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is the #1 player in the marketplace with overtaking KFC, and the franchisees of Chick-fil-A make $6 million a unit, whereas the franchisees of Popeyes make about $1.5 million. So Popeyes franchisees have a lot of ground to make up, but they have a good sandwich.
Wonderful. We'll stop right there. That wraps it up for this week's Friday Business Report. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ebony.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.